Ladies and gentlemen, now in today's video, we're going to be having a little bit of a chat about everything we know so far about Realm of Champions, which is the brand new Marvel game arriving next year. Now, first things first, Realm of Champions is a completely separate game to Marvel Contest of Champions, which has a very different focus on the core game itself. Marvel Contest of Champions is mainly focused on PvE, the majority of the content, you're just fighting the computer, and there's no actual scenario where you're actually fighting players. You do have stuff like Alliance War, but even then that isn't like actual PvP because you're still again just fighting the computer. So from what I've been told so far is that the main focus on Realm of Champions is going to be on player versus player. So they're going to have 1v1, they're going to have 3v3, they're also going to have 1v1 with 2 bots, so that's you and then like 2 AI versus another player with 2 AI as well. But the main focus of this game is on PvP in comparison to PvE. However, there is still going to be PvE content. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, you're going to be playing a singular character, but this aims to be kind of a first of its kind game, playing with dynamic camera angles that put you close to the action when you're in the action, but also have ways to kind of navigate and see like the rest of the map and different stuff when you're not in the action. So they're kind of still playing about with camera angles and how the game looks, because obviously one of the questions that came up quite quickly is like, what does this game look like? Does it look like a MOBA? Does it look like Future Fight? So this game isn't trying to be another game, it's trying to be its own thing that's completely new, completely unique. So yeah, we're gonna have to see how that one turns out. But when it comes to kind of the combat and design, they're going for quick, exciting, and action-packed gameplay. They didn't want the matches and games to kind of drag on like MOBAs do, where you're kind of like sitting back and trying to kill like NPCs and spawns to level up so you can take down towers and stuff. They want it to be like really in the heat of the action, very exciting, very interesting, engaging, and I like that philosophy, man. It sounds really, really cool. Alongside the PvP, they're also planning story content as well that will possibly include boss fights, taking on hordes of enemies, completing all sorts of missions for the various factions, and also they were teasing like special exclusive quest where you get to play like the leader of your faction, because there are some really cool characters like Apocalypse that you might be able to play for like special missions as well. The progression system plan at the moment appears to be all around gear and also customization when it comes to individual characters. So it looks like the plan at the moment appears to give everybody the bare bones characters for any house that they join. Then there will be many different ways in the game to kind of upgrade and customize characters, gain new gear, and that gear unlocks all sorts of abilities and additional powers that champions can utilize. Every single character looks to have 6 different equipment slots, but it also looks like there's going to be additional customization on top of this as well. There are going to be events in this that link and cross over with Marvel Contest of Champions, but again, these are 2 completely separate games. They do have Marvel Realm of Champions kind of in the back of their mind as a potential game that could evolve into an esport. However, esports, we were having a bit of a discussion about it, are a thing that the community decides and not the game developers. It really depends what kind of competitive scene comes up, and also there are so many factors that will, either make it viable or not viable as an esport. But they just want to make the best and most enjoyable game possible and kind of see where it takes them. So yeah, I'm a little bit interested, man. Like a PvP very focused game, like gets me really excited, man, because for so long I've wanted a huge element of player versus player in Marvel Contest of Champions, and it kind of seems like this is really the core focus of this game. Now let's have a chat about the houses in the game. So the houses are kind of the different factions of the game, and there are 8 houses aimed for the launch of the game, and each one of these 8 houses currently has 1 playable character. However, there are plans to add multiple playable characters to every single house, and also add in a lot more houses as well. We'll talk about some of those in a minute. So currently the 8 houses and the playable characters that are aimed for launch are the House of Iron, and you've got Iron Legionnaire as the playable character, and this is kind of like a customizable version of Iron Man. So with Iron Man, I imagine they're going to have the Infinity War sets, the classic sets, maybe a few sets from the movie. Also, they talked about like War Machine parts that could be added to this Iron Man as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting customization there. there. Next up, we have the Spider Guild, and kind of the playable champion in this is Spider Warrior, which is essentially a customizable version of Spider-Man. So yeah, there's all sorts of crazy gadgets and stuff, judging by the teasers that we've seen so far. But yeah, I'm probably most excited for this one, man. The Spider Guild seems really, really awesome, and Spider-Man, like, they're so much fun to play in Marvel Contest of Champions. So with all these gadgets, I'm sure that's going to be a pretty damn fun time. And then we got the Gamma Horde, who has Hulk as their playable character. And with Hulk, they were saying that the Gamma Horde is kind of like in a wasteland, but the Hulks are very resourceful, and they can use all sorts of scrap to create weapons. And they were saying that apparently one of Hulk's weapons is like 2 aeroplane wings. And there's just some like crazy stuff that he does with those, just pummeling the opponent and doing all sorts of weird attacks. But yeah, Gamma Horde seems quite interesting, man. I think that's going to be very fun to play. Then next up, we got the Patriot Garrison, who has Super Soldier as their character, which is essentially like a template version of Captain America there. I think they were saying one of the earliest playtests they did for the game was actually making a Civil Warrior version of Captain America. So Captain America with like this awesome shield that kind of fires like a laser as well. And Civil Warrior in Marvel Contest of Champions is a little bit of a meme, but I don't think you can deny that the concept of Civil Warrior is really, really cool. But hopefully in this game, if you have the Civil Warrior equipment or armor on, then he's, you know, a little bit more interesting, a bit more viable, and also enjoyable to play. So I'm interested to see how that one pans out. Next up, we have the Asgardian Republic, and the champion is, of course, Thor. So if you're a big Thor fan, you know, the Asgardian Republic hopefully should be a really good time. Hopefully there's like Stormbreaker Thor as well, and maybe like a dual-wielding version. Like the faction leader is like I think a dual-wielding version of like Thor Jane Foster, who's like a fire hammer and an ice hammer. So yeah, I think that should be really, really cool for like one of the quests. Next up, we got the Temple of Vishanti, and the character here is Sorcerer Supreme. So this is actually going to be a female version of Doctor Strange. However, apparently this character's like animations and spells look absolutely insane. So like Gabe was really bigging it up to us, saying that, you know, this is the moment they realized they could do some really cool stuff with the combat. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what they do with some of the Mystic stuff in the game. But from our chat, it kind of seems like the Mystic character brings in like this element of like support and control to various matchups, which sounds quite exciting, man. So I'm very curious to see how that one works out. Then next up, for all of the Black Panther fans, we do have the Kingdom of Wakanda, led by Queen Shuri, and the champion is going to be a female customizable version of Black Panther. So she just looks badass. Like the model, the logo looks awesome, and I think there's going to be some interesting stuff that Black Panther could do. Then finally, we have the Pyramid X House, who is led by Apocalypse. So the playable character for this one is going to be Storm. So personally, I'm very curious to see how they're going to do Storm, especially when it comes to the customization. I'm curious to see if they've got like different weather sets, if there's going to be like a freezing one, like a lightning one, wherever they play about like different stuff as well. So yeah, I think there's definitely some potential when it does come to Pyramid X. But again, a lot of this stuff is very hard to get kind of a good visual idea until we see any gameplay for Marvel Realm of Champions. And even at the Marvel panel on Friday, there was no gameplay. So we've just got what we've been told, what we've been shown in terms of the artwork. So yeah, I think for a lot of people, like including myself, gameplay is going to be that really big selling point. But from talking with a lot of the developers and watching a lot of interviews, it's got me very excited about this game, man, because Marvel Contest of Champions, they have made fundamentally a really enjoyable game to play, and the engine for that game is quite old because it was built in like 2013, 2014, so there's certain limitations that they can't really keep up with unless they were to rebuild the game entirely. So having the promise of like this new action-packed brawler game seems really exciting, man. Like I'm very much looking forward to it. But again, I'm so desperate to see some gameplay. Now to go back to the houses, each house is going to have a land, which is a playable battle arena. But unlike Marvel Contest of Champions, these arenas can be different shapes, sizes, and host different features. And they're not like the static stage that Marvel Contest of Champions is. So very much like a three-dimensional arena. So that's definitely going to add like a lot more of an element to the combat. Also, like if different like arenas have different features and certain stuff that you take advantage of in terms of the landscape, I'm sure that's gonna add a lot more to the meta, man. So I'm very curious to see how that works out. Now within all 8 of the houses, there are systems that are gonna encourage kind of notoriety, ranks, and progression. So any single house that you pledge and join to, you start off like as a rookie. So you're like at the beginning, you need to kind of work work your way up by doing missions, kind of defeating enemies and all that stuff. And as you work your way up through the ranks, you're going to be more well known in the house, kind of more stuff does become available. So I like that there is this progression-based system in each and every one of the houses. Hopefully that's going to be, something more interesting than something more grindy. So at the launch of this game, there are 8 houses planned. However, they have 15 houses that are fully fleshed out. And I watched like Brian Grant's video where he's chatting with Gabe, and he teased that one of the houses is apparently going to be a Deadpool house, and that house is, a little bit crazy. So we're going to very quickly expand from 8 to 15 within the first year and a bit. But he also did mention that they have 50 houses, 50 houses, kind of like concepted out, like in the distant future, stuff like a Howard the Duck and Hyperion house, just all sorts of crazy stuff. Also talking about exploring the role of mercenaries within this world as well, and how they could do characters like Moon Knight. So yeah, I think they got some very interesting plans by the sound of it. So Marvel Realm of Champions is set to launch in 2020, and their plans to be kind of a big open beta at some point next year, but they're not really too sure how they want to run it yet, so no specific info as of yet. Now, I think a fairly obvious question, if you're a Marvel Contest of Champions player, is this the end of Marvel Contest of Champions? Is MCOC in trouble? Marvel Contest of Champions, just to put it very bluntly, again, I can see this from a YouTuber perspective based on my views, the amount of people that are watching Marvel Contest of Champions content, looking on App Annie and seeing their revenue as well. But Marvel Contest of Champions has been doing the best it ever has been this year, man, thanks to the success of like the MCU and also the game having so much content that it's driven in over the last 5 years. So a truckload of more content is also planned for the next 2 to 3 years of the game. They have a lot of stuff mapped out kind of well into the future, and Kabam, just being a business, instead of wanting like one giant pile of money like they have for Marvel Contest of Champions, is they want 2 giant piles of money. With Marvel Realm of Champions, it kind of appears that they want to push a very different game in a very different angle, where it's mainly PvP focused when it does come to the end game. So yeah, it just seems like a very different game for a bit of a different market, but also while having a similar kind of look and feel to it that Marvel Contest of Champions does. So overall, man, I think it's going to be a bit of an interesting one to keep an eye on. I think it does have a lot of potential, but again, it's still pretty hard to tell without seeing any of the gameplay. One final thing I want to mention as well is, being Kabam, it probably will be a bit of a whale milking fiesta, but hopefully they can strike a good balance to make the game enjoyable and viable and competitive for free-to-play players. And I personally think that Marvel Contest of Champions is still one of the most enjoyable mobile games you can play for free if you're a skilled player that knows what to do, but also Marvel Contest of Champions as well is mainly a PvE game in comparison to a PvP game. So Kabam going into like a very heavy PvP market like they want to do here and kind of pushing that competitive edge by the look of it, I'm very interested to see how they're going to strike that balance between making a good game that's fair for free-to-play players and whales, that doesn't completely allow the whales to roll over all of the free-to-play players as well. So I'm curious to see how this game goes and how like the combat and scaling and everything is going to be done, and how much skill is going to be involved in the whole playing process, but I think it does have a lot of potential. So overall, man, I'm pretty excited about Marvel Realm of Champions. I think it does have some potential. Like Kabam, they have made a very enjoyable game with Marvel Contest of Champions that personally I've been really sucked into for the last like 3.5 years of my life. So I have faith that they know how to make an enjoyable game, but also I know that they know how to really milk those whales. So we're going to have to see how it turns out for Marvel Realm of Champions, but I think next year is going to be a very exciting one. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think about Marvel Realm of Champions in the comment section below. Please do smash that like button if you enjoyed today's breakdown video. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.